going to use the Academy watercolor paper today, but the rough version. I love this stuff. Also the Making Art for Joy's Sake palette, of course. I gotta be honest, these watercolors are softer, and so I don't spray them as heavily as I would others. So a light spritz is all you need. And who knows, the brushes, probably a little bit of everything. So there you go. I don't know where my liner brush is. We'll find it. Okay, I realize this isn't rough. This is actually hot press. But you know what? Let's run with it. Today is another real-time session, and friends, it's all about a simple but incredibly satisfying watercolor flower pattern. Starting with the 1/4 inch dagger, I'm going to do that again. I'm going into this peach color, and with my point and curved edge facing down, I'm going to press and lift, press and lift. Notice the angle of my hand changing. Press and lift, press and lift. The angle's important here. Press and lift, press and lift. And there you have it. 6 petals, 5 petals, whatever floats your boat. While it's still wet, I'm going to go in here and tap a few little dots right where the petals meet the center. Rinse. And then a little bit of that yellow, my brush wasn't completely clean, it's okay, and go in the middle. Now, if those colors aren't moving as much as you'd like, take a little bit of a damp, clean brush and blend a little bit. There you have it. Now remember, this is hot press paper, so things are gonna move differently. Hot press is great for more detailed work. It's not so great for wet and wet application, so just keep that in mind. Grab the green you love, the green you have, and we're going to press, drag, and lift. Press, drag, and lift. All right, let's get into it. Let's do some purple, a few dots, and we're gonna do that in a few different spots. I like odd numbers, or at least a nice variety of shapes and sizes to filler flowers like this. This particular cluster I'm doing in a little bit of a cascade, and you'll see why really quickly here. Just the tip of my brush and a little bit of green, a really light touch, and we've got a simple stem. Let's go over here, and again, a really light touch. Notice how I'm holding the brush, how it changes. The angle of my brush is changing in my hand to get those really thin wispy lines, but at the right angle and with the right pressure. How you're holding your brush, this comes with time in terms of being comfortable with it and having an instinct about it. The best thing that you can do, though, to get more accustomed to the different ways to hold your brush and change the angle of your hand is to do some drills and practices. I'm going to link a few videos below that are going to help you out with that. Let's do a little side view something or other here, almost like a side view buttercup. Yeah, that's what they're called, buttercup. Sometimes I say words and I'm like, is that the right word? I don't know. All right, simple like that. We're gonna do a cluster of them. Press and drag and repeat it on the other side, and then a single press and drag on either side of that. You wanna make sure you have enough pigment and water on your brush, about a 50-50% ratio. And then let's do another little one up here. Double press and drag, and then a single drag on either side. There's 4 there. Let's do one that's facing down. And there we have it. And let's repeat that somewhere else in the composition. Double press and drag, single press and drag. And we're just gonna repeat that. I love patterns like this. Super simple approach, but incredibly satisfying and absolutely delightful to look at, to be quite honest. So I would highly recommend, if you're in a rut, if you're feeling like you don't know what to paint, even if you're not in a rut and you're just like, meh, I want to paint, but I don't know what, try one of these. All right, dragging down from the red with a little bit of green. And I love how that is carrying some of that color. Now this one is a downward facing. I'm gonna add a little leaf moment in there. but I love the idea of dragging down from the red so you get some of that red pulling down into your green stem. I'll show you here again with these little babies. Now I'm thinking ahead, like where do I want this to end? And I'm in my head imaginary kind of drawing this, well, I'm imaginary kind of drawing it above the paper. Drag, 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 drag. Now that one became quite yellow or quite red, but it's okay. So I'm kind of dragging these stems to meet at a point down here, and that gives it a nice kind of spray effect. I'm gonna rinse my brush because I do have a nice amount of red on there. Load up with some green again, and I'm gonna go over here. Now I want these to curve a little. So I'm gonna drag, longer stems, drag, and there we go. And then a few little press and lift leaves. Imperfection here is king, friends. Imperfection is king. You want to go all in. You want to double down on the easy breezy, loosey-goosey, freedom type of imperfection. It's going to serve you well. Let's do some greenery fillers. Let's see. I don't know what I want to do, so I'm going to do a press, drag, and lift leaf and another one. And notice how the size is larger than anything around it. I've got a lot of little detailing moments, but I don't have kind of medium size elements, which I feel I need compositionally. So this is just going to be a little side view kind of, or 3/4 view, little spray of greenery. Let's repeat that somewhere. It doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't be, in my opinion, exactly like this one. Let's just do some downward facing. So press, drag, and lift, reload, press, drag, and lift, and we're going to start to curve our marks. Press, drag, and lift. Let's add a few more after reloading. Press, drag, and lift, and let's do a longer one over here. So longer drag. Nice. And then just add your little stem. Really light touch. If you're not accustomed to making these super thin wispy lines with your dagger brush, you might want to practice, or just go in, be brave, and see what happens. All right, let's see a little bit more of those leafy, larger moments. Press, drag, and lift. Angle the next one into the first one, and then descend in size, run into some of these elements up here, and then just a little stem here, and you're done. I'm gonna do a little bit more here. Just reshape this one. There we go. Lovely, lovely, lovely. I'm gonna add some more of these peach flowers. I'm rinsing off camera. You can hear my brush clanging into the side of my painter's pot. All right, press, drag, and lift. Around and around. Notice the change of the angle of my hand. It's pretty important. Let's do a side view. Something like that. My brush is running out of color and moisture, and let's do a downward facing. Something like that. Now let's bring it all together. Little yellow. And I'm just kind of dabbing into these side views, and then a little haphazard circle there, and then a little bit of pink. I didn't rinse my brush. I'm gonna go dab. I actually didn't care for how that worked out, so I'm gonna do a little bit of a different approach here. And then you're probably wondering, well, how do I fix that? Well, let's see. Let's take a little bit of brown. Let's take some blue. I'm not rinsing. I'm just going right into these pans. And a little bit of purple and a little bit more of that brown, and maybe a bit of green. There we go. We have just a dark, lovely color. And let's go ahead and add some dabs and dots in here. Actually, let's go ahead and make this solid. I like the idea of it being solid. And then we can go over here and add some of that as well to tie these together and to make sure they still look somewhat like the same type of flower. Now let me see if I can smooth any of this out. Yeah, that's smoothing a little bit. Make sure you don't bump into that dark center. And there's something I'm going to do with detailing in a bit to really kind of button these up a little better. But for now, I'm just going to blendy blend a little bit more. not worry about it too much, knowing I'm going to come back to these once they are dry. Okay, let's do a little bit of what I would call like a ginkgo leaf. A little bit of green on my brush, a little bit of peach. Press and lift, press and lift. You almost want to make little hearts. So press and lift side by side, press and lift, see that? I am varying the size of each side sometimes. I'm also varying the overall size of my two little heart-shaped press and lifts. This is going to be pretty broad. I like this kind of feathery, wispy look. This could even turn into a maidenhair fern. Love it, love it. Pick up more green or more peach or both. Start to bring in a little bit of, where's my emerald green? There it is, a little bit of an emeraldy green. And start to change up your colors as you expand. Connect those there. But notice big things, variety of shape, but it still looks like a little heart, and variety of size as you go. All right. Load back up with a little bit of green, whatever's still on your palette. Don't feel like you have to mix something special. And you're going to drag down, but you want to think about the direction of the drag because you want to start connecting these. So I think this is going to be my center line, and I'm going to kind of radiate on either side from that center line. Now these don't all have to connect. I'm kind of almost feeling like I don't want these in here to connect. And you're wondering maybe, Christy, how do you make all these decisions on the fly? And I'm not gonna lie, the ease of decision making, two things, time and experience, and then the second thing, that was two things, but you know what I mean, is just being okay with possibly making a mistake. And we have to be okay with making mistakes because we're gonna make a lot of mistakes, and it's okay. All right, let's do some straight up brown with a little bit of green, mostly brown. I'm feeling like I need some dark moments here, so I'm really digging into my gorgeous brown here. Oh, where. Now, don't feel like you can't stop and think and wonder and reflect, because you can, and as I am right now, because I'm not quite sure where I want to go here. And I'm going to go with the Press Dragon Lift Leaf, but in this other color. And I'm going to go over here and add a little bit of that on this similar type of flower. Notice I'm holding my brush now further up on the handle, which gives me a different look, which I love. A little bit of a different look than this one where I was holding it further down. And let's do a little bit here. This one's kind of a side view popping out. And now I haven't reloaded my brush with water. I haven't felt like I needed to yet, but now I do. So a little dab in my water bucket, and I'm feeling like I'm back in business here. Gosh, I love this little dude here so much. I want to do more of them. So I'm going to grab my red, and I actually really adore this downward facing one. So remember, 2 pressed and drags right next to each other, and then a single on each side. And let's just do a few of those. Bring in another color if you want. I dabbed a little bit of pink onto my brush, but oh my gosh, I adore these shapes. So simple. And you can start to elaborate these shapes. You could do 3 strokes in the middle, 2 on either side. Get brave, get curious, and see what happens. Because when you decide you're going to be brave and you let your creativity and your curiosity run rampant, sky is the absolute lovely limit. So get in there and just notice how I'm bouncing around. This is looking like a lot, so I'm going to stop. And I'm going to go right in and get some stems in to give this some structure. I just grab the two greens on my palette, the two more earthy greens, and I'm going to start here in the center and drag down. And I'm going to go over here. And I'm deciding this is my center from which most things will emanate. So yeah, I don't know what kind of plant this is. Maybe there's something out there that exists. This could actually, these almost could look like pods of some sort. These could even be little berries potentially. So, and then a few little press and lifts for leafy moments. Oh yeah, gosh. These could become crab apples if you evolve them a little bit more, quite honestly. I love, love, love that. I'm going to do a little bit more of that over here. You know, as you're working through paintings, friends, you are going to have moments where you fall in absolute love with an element that you've created. And you are, I suggest to hold on to those moments when you discover something you love. Let it become a focal point. Let it become a strong element that you return to in a painting mindfully again and again. When you're loving something, when that something on the page that you've painted is triggering that kind of response in your soul, listen to it and follow it. Rinsing my brush, grabbing those greens. So I kind of want all things to emanate from that center line. I'm getting a little more loosey here with my strokes, but I'm okay with it. I'm living it. I'm loving it. Go down here with that one. And then back to the red, rinsed my brush a little, and then a few little single moments. Feels right. I'm going to do that over here. Another piece of advice that I have for you, friends, with compositions like these, but honestly for pretty much anything you might be painting, is bounce around the page. Bounce around. It will keep your eye active. It will keep your mind sharp. When you get hyper-focused on a particular area, things can get a little muddy physically and emotionally in a painting. So I highly recommend the bounce. Bounce, bounce, bounce around. All right. Still not loving this. Just no. Nope, nope, nope. So let's get into recovery mode here. We need something dark. I'm going to go into my red and my pink, and I am going to go over top of these. Over top, boom. Don't get nervous. It still doesn't look fantastic, but I think it will. I'm feeling it. Sometimes when you are correcting an oopsie, you have to be bold. Right now, my boldness is showing up in the form of really thick watercolor application of a really bold color. All right, I'm already happier. Now, watch what we're gonna do. Repeat the correction. Repeat the correction. I don't have enough water on my brush, dipping in a little. Repeat the correction that worked to really integrate it into the composition. Now, I'm using a little bit of a different technique there. Two press and drags next to one another over and over again to create this little flower shape. Two press and drag. See, I'm doing that 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and letting the white space kind of happen where it happens. All right, now I don't like the double thing we got going on. Man, I just keep, making the mistakes so I can show you how to fix them, apparently. Ay, ay, ay. This sometimes happens when Christy paints and talks. Uh-huh. All right, that's better. Let's go over here and do a couple more of these. Pink and red. Not a lot of water on the brush right now. Remember, we're working on hot press, and this is what hot press is made for, friends. It is made for more graphic, detailed moments like this, not necessarily washes, a lot of wet and wet. All right. Now that's a lot of red. I'm going back to my purple because I do love those purple fillers that we added. I'm going to do a little bit more of that action here. My color's a little muddy. I think I had too much red on my brush. I'm going to reload after rinsing. And let's do a little bit more here. Yep. Bringing in the color. And I'm going to do a bigger cluster right here. Let it take shape. Maybe it curves upward. Yeah, I think it curves upward. So these are press and lift, different pressure. More pressure is going to give you a longer mark, and less pressure is going to give you more of a dab or a dot. There we go. All right. What do I love this lemony, yellowy, earthy green. So I feel like I need a little bit of that somewhere. Where? Oh yeah. A little bit there. And a little bit here. My eyes are bouncing all over the page to just kind of quickly examine what's going on. Little touch here. Oh yeah. Remember, chalk yourself up, be kind to yourself, pat yourself on the back. When it's merited, it's always merited. There's always a reason to pat yourself on the back. Now, I want to go in and add those dark centers to all my flowers to kind of see what that does to the composition. That's a great tip. When you're painting, you want to constantly be giving yourself the opportunity to evaluate what you have done. And that sometimes means taking a break from something you were doing to add a little bit of detail to make sure that your plans and the look you're after is still happening. It's still going to make sense. So I added those dark moments in because I was still questioning the red and the placement and all the things. But once I added the darkness into the flower, my brain was like, oh yeah, you got this. Now it also makes me want to add some of that darkness, little tiny touch to my maidenhair ginkgo, whatever the heck kind of filler this is, a little touch at the base of most or all of the hearts. Oh, yes. I'm happy. All right, now I'm liking this element. I'm going to continue adding some moments, but I'm also in my head saying, Christy, don't overdo it. You never know once this creative brain takes over what is going to happen. It could get cray-cray in here. Okay, little few dabs. Let's see what I do with these. I'm still feeling like I've got my head about me with this little darkness contrasty thing that I'm starting to love and add here. Maybe, let's see, maybe, oh, little bit on top of my crabapple side view. Are you still here for it, friends? If you're still here for it, I'd love for you to give this video a boop. That's my weird way of saying please like this video because it helps others find the crazy that is my channel. It might be crazy, but man, oh man, do we have a whole heck of a lot of fun. So go ahead and do me that favor. All right, it's been a little while. If you noticed, I actually left and got my nails done and I'm back. So everything's dry and we're gonna head back in and wrap this bad boy up. I feel like I'm missing the pink that was up here and I wanna bring it back. So I'm gonna load this brush up, not too much pink on the brush. If I had to quantify it, I would say it's about 70% water, 30% pigment. And I'm going to, with the tip of my brush and the flat long side facing down, which is a little different than normal, I'm going to make these scratchy marks around an invisible center. And then I'm gonna go outside of those and make more bouncy marks around what I just did. And we're going to go ahead and repeat that a little smaller. Bouncy, scratchy marks around an invisible center, and then definitely more bouncy again around that. I'm gonna rinse and then grab a little bit of that gorgeous fluorescent yellow and go right in while everything's still wet and a little round dab. And there we have it. And I feel like I want a little bit more something, so I'm gonna grab my peach and make a few dots or dabs of that around. And then for composition's sake, I'm going to add a few more moments just like that. Oh, that was too much water. A great way to figure out if you have too much water on your brush is when you start to lay down a detail stroke, you immediately get a little bubble on the page. And that is your signal, that is your sign. Blot that and fast. A few little ones here. These are side view versions of these. And I feel like I need more contrast up here. So I'm gonna load up with a little heavier pink. There we go. And then do some dabbing dashes around that center. Okay, I'm liking that. I'm going to reload and add a few more side view versions of those over here. And then maybe just like one, no, maybe two down here. These are super simple strokes, nothing fancy going on. Adding a little yellow dot. It's just really a way for me to get a little bit of that pink back into the scene here. And I think that works really nicely. Okay, little thing that I love to do, it's a little trick, compositional trick perhaps. So we've got these peach flowers throughout the composition. I like to take a flower petal color and then use it again for a leaf detail in some areas. I just find it to be a really lovely way to create kind of a graphic feel, especially if you're working on a pattern. This is more of a pattern than a traditional floral composition. So repeating a color, but on a completely different type of subject matter, is a really great way to add some interesting repetition without it being boring repetition. So press and drag on either side of an invisible line here. And then I'm ending with a few single strokes of that press and drag. Look at that, that's just lovely. Okay, I've been fighting the urge to add some blue in here, and I don't think I can fight that urge any longer. So I'm gonna work in some blueberries, but they're not gonna be super detailed. I'm gonna start with a circle, using the point of my brush with this long flat edge facing down. I often have, when I'm kind of drawing with my brush, I often use that flat edge facing down using the tip. I don't know why, it just seems to be an angle that works really well. So if you are working with this same dagger, just a little something you might want to try. If you're not working with a dagger, you're working with a round, it's probably not gonna apply. It most definitely doesn't apply. So, all right, I'm just adding a few moments of berries in places, making sure my eye is bouncing around so that I don't get too concentrated, too much of something in one area. Now notice what I'm doing here. I'm taking that darker, it's the same blue, but more concentrated. So it's not even darker. Well, I mean, it is darker, but it's just more concentrated on the very tip of my brush. And I'm going around these little white moments that I left on the berries and dabbing that darker color around. Lovely, I love that. All right, where else? Over here, I think would be good. A simple trick in composition is to think about like elements being in kind of a triangle. How do they interact with one another? Are they kind of in a triangle with one another? And that can help your composition. It's a very simple, basic approach, but when all else fails, or you just want to be super casual about things, it's a fun little way to give yourself some parameters for your composition. So that could help. If you're stuck, you want to add a new element, you don't know how many or where to add them, try out my triangle technique. I do a little bit down here. My brush is getting pretty dry now, but it's still applying the color. I'm not getting kind of that washy juiciness, so I'm going to go ahead and reload some water on here, bring it back to the palette on the blue so that I can kind of get this juiciness back. I'm going to make a bigger blueberry up here. Just feel like we need some larger options in the mix. And we've got these blue moments kind of sprinkled out really nicely, and I think that is a lovely effect that is interesting but not overbearing. All right, dabbing in some of that dark blue. I'm even gonna make a berry here fully of the dark blue. Look how nice that looks. All right, you can probably hear my chair creaking. Like, this is legit, like in real time, friends. This is legit, no faking it here. All right. A little bit of darkness over here. There we have it. Rinsing my brush. I'm not sure I want to add more blue, so I'm not sure, so I'm not going to do it. Notice I'm not going back in with added layers. I'm not even adding linear detail today because I just want to keep this kind of flat and graphic and interesting in that way. And I don't feel like I have to go in with more bells and whistles at this point. I'm gonna go over top of these black dots that I created with a little touch of pink. And when I feel like the black is starting to lift from the moisture I'm adding with the pink, I'm going to, I'm going to rinse my brush so that my pink doesn't get muddy, and come back to it with a reloaded brush. And look at that interesting filler. I love that. All right, grabbing this soft pink from my palette, and again going over top, and that's just a little, if you go over top and you can't see the black dot through, you just need more water on your brush. There we go. See? Dab away some of that color. You can either add more water or dab away some of the color if you've lifted up too much color from your palette. And look at that, just little circular motions. They're not even complete circles. And some of them I am not even going over ones that have dots, just to kind of extend that effect. Ooh, I like that. That is fun. That is a fun little effect. Very cool. Okay, I'm gonna go in now with the closest thing we're gonna get to linear detail. I am just picking up whatever crud color is in the corner of my palette here. Yes, I did say crud color. And I'm gonna add in a few little linear moments, little like flowerless branches here and there. Again, long edge of my brush facing down towards the page, but I'm only using the very tip of my brush. I've kind of got my pinky knuckle bracing my page to give me some structure, because I don't want to dip my hand in paint. There's definitely some wet paint on here, and I don't want to go mixing with it. All right, there we go. Paint's running out, reload. And I'm going to add a number of these because it's just a little, very subtle addition. But if there's enough of them, it can become obvious and interesting. See, you know, obvious and not so hot, that's not a combination we want. But obvious and interesting, oh yeah, that's always a winning combination. Oh, good heavens. All right, I had some missing stems here. I'm gonna just add them in. Real wispy, really light and airy. Some of your lines are gonna be thicker than others. Some are gonna be super lovely and thin. It's okay to have some that feel a little bit thicker and heavier. There's nothing wrong with that. Variety is the spice of life. Okay, I'm going to fill out the rest of this composition with a few more moments of that kind of ginkgo, maidenhair fern, you know where I'm at. So dab and a dab right next door. A little bit too much water on my brush. I'm gonna dab on a paper towel. And you're basically creating a really haphazard heart. And we're gonna just go all around the perimeter here in places, not everywhere. We don't want it to look like a weird outline of little heart leaves. We just wanna fill out this composition. And the nice thing about this, I'm not saying I'm finished with this. I'm not saying that this is going to be the absolute last edition I ever add, but I do feel the need to stop soon. I can always revisit tomorrow, come back in a week. This can be one of my standby paintings. What do I mean by standby paintings? I often have about 10 paintings going at any time, something that I can have on hand and always return to when I need fresh eyes or a break from another piece I'm working on. So this piece is going to go in the standby pile. And who knows, you might see it again here on this channel. I've done that before. I'm actually gonna link 2 videos below that I used, and they were standby paintings that I showed you how to create in a variety, how to finish them in a variety of different ways. So I'm gonna link that below. All right, I'm just going around the perimeter here. If you feel like you need one somewhere in the interior, don't be shy, go ahead and add it. One thing about patterns, if you ever want to turn it into a repeat pattern, now that's a whole other video, that's not what today's about. But if you down the road, you can even hire people, you can spend like 20 bucks and have them turn a pattern of yours into a repeat that can be used on upholstery and different things. Keeping your art away from the edges, see how I went off the edge here? That's kind of a no-no. That makes designing a repeat pattern a lot harder. So I have gotten into the habit of not painting right up to the edge in most cases. And so, yeah, just a little fun tip. It's not a bad habit to start. I'm not going to add branches to these, but I am going to add those little dark dots with the crud from the corners of my palette. Or if you don't have the crud, you could use a Payne's Gray. It's a lovely option to mimic the gorgeous richness of palette crud. I need to make a t-shirt that says I paint with palette crud because yeah. All right, there we have it. There we have it. I feel like I want to add a few more moments of something dark in a few places, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Never underestimate the power of your instinct. If your instinct towards the end of a painting session is strongly telling you to do something, then be brave enough to listen to that instinct. Be brave, be bold. I want you to check out this video next where I show you how to sketch flowers, which I know is pretty scary. Learn how to sketch a few flowers and you can paint anything you want. And until next time, I'm wishing you happy painting.